What is up? Thanks for being here. We're going to start off with some minor league highlights, but we're going to talk some trade deadline stuff as well. CJ Culpepper is kind of the headline guy from the minor league system tonight because he pitched for the first time since late May. He's been out with a forearm injury, which is kind of a scary thing. Sometimes that's a precursor to bigger issues, and having him miss that much time, it was kind of starting to get worried if there was something else going on, but he's back. He pitched 2 innings. He looked great. He looked very crisp tonight for Cedar Rapids. 2 perfect innings, 3 strikeouts, 30 pitches, 21 of them strikes. So very efficient. You're seeing a bunch of that outing. Again, 2 perfect innings. We'll see all 6 outs he records. But Culpepper, a guy who got a ton of prospect steam, and then he actually missed kind of the first couple rounds in the rotation this year for Cedar Rapids, and then again was out in late May due to this forearm strain. So he's kind of fallen behind some of his classmates in his draft class. Zebby's all the way up in AAA. Morris and Lewis are in AA. So I'm sure he would love to pitch his way up to Wichita by the end of this season, and this is maybe affording him some time to do that possibly. Of course, he's got to get stretched back out, only throwing 2 innings and 30 pitches today. But certainly this was a huge outing to build upon for Culpepper coming back from that injury. Love to see that. And we'll take a look. I got some questions in the comments about this park that Quad Cities River Bandits play in. Modern Woodman Park in Davenport, Iowa. You see a little bit of the background there. This place is wild. But yeah, Culpepper, again, just a huge bright spot on the day. Rain Down Cone, you get a good look at him, but also a good look at the background of all of this crazy carnival stuff. That's actually inside of the stadium there. And then beyond the right field wall is the Mississippi River, which is right on the border between Iowa and Illinois. But Doan Cone goes deep. Enough about the stadium, Tom. Talk about the game. I've never been there, but if any of you guys have been there, let me know how crazy that is. But Rain Down Cone, of course, acquired as part of that Margot trade. He's been awesome. Moving on up to AA, and just want to give a huge salute to Aaron Rozek, who completed 7 innings for the Wichita Wind Surge. Guy was pitched all over, 28 years old, pitching in AA, pitching great. He has like a 2.10 ERA. Burnsville product, pitched his college ball at MSU Mankato, pitched in the North Woods League for Alexandria and St. Cloud. The Twins signed him out of Indy Ball, and he's just been a really great organizational soldier for a couple of years. Has pitched awesome for Wichita this year, and again, completed 7 innings tonight for the Wind Surge. Has gotten a couple looks in St. Paul, which is pretty cool. They've given him that opportunity. Has not pitched very well in those opportunities, unfortunately, but again, really soaking up a lot of innings for Wichita and pitching super well. So kind of wanted to get him on here and just get a Minnesota boy, show him some love. But moving over to the Twins info, they won 5-0. Shut out Detroit to take this series. 12 hits for the Twins, 1 hit for Detroit. They 1-hit the Tigers. Twins really could have had some more, but they struggled with runners in scoring position a bit. Bailey Ober, 8 innings, 11 strikeouts, 1 hit, 2 walks, threw 98 pitches, 65 of them strikes, and then Caleb Thielbar finished things off in the 9th inning. So Bailey Ober, he's been a little bit of a mirror of the Twins this season in a way, in that it's mostly been good, but there's been a little up and down. There's been a little inconsistency, but man, he looked amazing today, and he's rolling right now. I love the way he's looked. A big thing that happened in this game, Jose Miranda had to exit, which we'll see on the hitting side numbers here, but he got hit in the ear flap. Thank goodness, these helmets are so well made, and that he was able to kind of turn away the right way just off instinct. It didn't get his shoulder at all or anything. That was a direct hit. And Do Young Park of MLB.com worded it after the game that he looked no worse for his wear. So Jose Miranda, I'm sure they're going to be careful with that, and there'll be lots of concussion testing and things like that. But, maybe don't expect Miranda to be out there in the next lineup. But doesn't sound like he's going to have to go on the injured list or anything, which is just amazing. That was a 95-mile-per-hour fastball that he took in the ear. So really fortunate that he's feeling all right, apparently. 3-hit game for Willie Castro. He also drew a walk. Willie's kind of been struggling of late. Great to see him hopefully having a breakout game there. Manuel Margot also had 3 hits. Nice to see. So Twins again scored 5 runs, win 5-0. The only team that lost was the Saints. They got beat up pretty good, but the Wind Surge win, Colonels win, Muscles win. Nice night across the system. Taking a look at the starting pitching rundown. Again, Aaron Rozek, 7 innings, 3 runs, no walks, 6 strikeouts. Has just been really great for the Wind Surge. There you see Culpepper's line, just beautiful. 2 perfect innings. Of course, we're not going to shower too much praise upon that. It was a short outing, but just so encouraging to see him just back on the mound. But then, any of these rehab starts that also go well, just gives you extra boost to see that. Moving on over to the hitting performances, kind of propped up Aaron Rozek as a good organizational soldier. I think Jake Rucker deserves kind of a salute in that regard as well. A guy who was playing his 207th Double-A game tonight, hit a home run and stole a base. He's been solid, really solid for Wichita, and he's played like 4 or 5 different positions, like in big chunks, not just like he's made some appearances there. Really moved out around a lot. Maybe not really pushing the needle to demand a promotion up to St. Paul, but just a guy who's been good to have around. And then again, Rain Doncone, you see, hit his 7th home run since being promoted to Cedar Rapids. Walker Jenkins had a 2-hit night and drove in 3 runs for the Mighty Muscles, so he stays hot. So that's the info for the games. Let's talk about the trade deadline for a minute. Moving on first, this was kind of the first time that I'd seen a big reporter outside of the market actually put this down anywhere. Bob Nightingale of USA Today reported that the Minnesota Twins are hamstrung in their pursuit of trade acquisitions unless they're able to dump a contract. That's something that I suspected. That's something that Aaron Gleeman's talked about on his podcast that he suspected, although Gleeman was very careful to make sure to call out that wasn't reporting. That was him suspicious of this. And now it seems like we do have some actual concrete reporting coming out that, yes, indeed, the Twins are not really free to add payroll. Here from Bob Nightingale, and then here's some information from an article from Dan Hayes of The Athletic. In his article, it says team sources say the Twins aren't in a position to add significant salary at the trade deadline. So, not very surprising to read this, but the second highlighted item was a surprise. Again, this is from The Athletic. You should go and support them. This was behind a paywall, but I think this has been out for a little bit. I don't feel great about sharing stuff of theirs behind the paywall, but so I always try to just insert a little basically ad for them. Dan Hayes is so great. Aaron Gleeman too. What a great 1-2 punch that they have producing content for them. So if you don't subscribe to The Athletic, and then especially if you're into other teams and other sports as well, it's a great deal. But anyway, the second thing I said that was surprising to me was that he reported that the Twins have listened to offers on impending free agent outfielders Manuel Margot and Max Kepler. Not surprised about that part. I've been one kind of predicting that Max Kepler will get traded, basically. I'm not sure if that's going to happen or not. I think that would be pretty disruptive to the clubhouse, which Dan reports at the bottom. The surprising part is they've listened on Duran. You listening is one thing. It's not like, you're just automatically going to hang up the phone on anybody. If someone asks about Walker Jenkins, the Twins will probably listen, or whoever. But Duran, that just surprised me that someone sort of with the team was putting that out there. That actually came out in reporting that, oh yeah, we listened to some talk to the team on Juan Duran. Dan Hayes did report that the cost for Kepler and Duran is said to be extremely high, as the Twins value those players and what they mean to the clubhouse. So I think there is an extremely, extremely low percentage chance that Duran would get traded. So this is more of just an insight into, kind of teams talk about a lot of different guys. I don't think he's going anywhere anytime too soon, but it wouldn't shock me if Duran got traded at some point eventually, in part because saves are the stat that gets so inflated in arbitration. For whatever reason, that's like the one stat that really gets guys paid kind of not appropriately to the actual market. Like closers in arbitration make a lot more money than they would even in free agency, which seems really backwards. Not sure how things got to that point, but again, all this money stuff, I hate that it's the way it is. I know I kind of am talking about it sort of casually at this point, because I'm not at all surprised. I was expecting this to be the case. It still sucks. It's really annoying. I think the way the Twins are shaping up, they're better than I was expecting probably this year. The pitching is a little bit worse, but the hitting is a lot better than I was expecting this season. And, I realize that they're still behind Cleveland. I'm not sure that they can catch Cleveland. But winning a wild card didn't slow down Texas. Winning a wild card didn't slow down the Diamondbacks. Both those teams were wild card teams. Both those teams went to the World Series. I think the Twins could do that. And a lot of people think I'm crazy when I kind of throw that out there. Oh, and you think of all the warts that the team has. Oh, you can't win a World Series with XYZ. So many World Series teams look back on, and they had so many problems and so many obvious holes that just October baseball is insane. And these teams are incredibly evenly matched. Even the best teams in the league are not that far off from each other. Baseball is a pretty random game, if we're being honest. To beat another team in a 3-game series or a 5-game series or even a 7-game series, you don't have to be so obviously better than that team. So a lot of the time, the underdog wins these series. So it's unfortunate to have conversations like this, but I think it's the reality of the situation. And I think there is kind of an interesting way that you can approach still engaging in this stuff. And I think it is from the perspective of Derek Falvey and Thad Levine and the whole front office. It's really interesting to see how they're going to try to problem solve this, because they did it in the off season, and they're going to have to do it again at the deadline and figure out, okay, we basically have no money to spend, but we want to make the team better. How would we do that? And I'm sure they're working insanely hard and exploring so many different avenues. That's probably where the Duran one came up, of how they might be able to do that. So that's kind of my perspective on the whole thing. I do think, it's frustrating, no doubt about it. I'm guessing probably the Twins won't do much, but I do want to talk about maybe an avenue that seems, I mentioned this in yesterday's recap, seems pretty obvious that they could really use a left-handed reliever. And Tanner Scott is the main guy that's out there, Miami's closer. He's excellent. But I want to throw out Robert Garcia of the Nationals as a guy who I could see being traded. On the surface, throwing out a guy with a 1.18 ERA and a guy with a 4.17 ERA, you're probably going to think I'm nuts putting these two guys together. But if you look at almost all the rest of their numbers, pretty comparable. Robert Garcia's BABIP is insanely a 330 BABIP. That's basically been the difference between them. Other than that, he's been really excellent. Left-hander for the Nationals. Had previously pitched for the Marlins. Really young in terms of kind of this group of players. Tanner Scott is a pending free agent. So he is excellent. He is the big dog. He is the top. He might be the top reliever left, let alone lefty reliever. Robert Garcia, I'm not even sure the Nationals are interested in trading him, because I'm pretty sure he is under team control until 2030. But, with relievers, how much does that stuff matter? Because they're so up and down. They're so, not that many. If you look back 3 or 4 years ago, not that many of the top relievers are still the top relievers now. So does having a bunch of team control on one of these guys really make all that much difference? I don't know. But here's his baseball savant profile. You see a lot of red, as is pretty typical for relievers, to be completely honest. But he's having a tremendous year. I just think he's a really interesting guy to keep in mind, because he's not making it. He's pre-arb, so he's making less than $1 million. The haul would be big, just because, again, he's having a good season. The under the hood stats are really good. He is cheap, and he has a ton of team control. So it's not like, even though he is only a left-handed reliever, it's not like you can just get him for free. And what will drive up the prices if the Nationals make a guy like this available, a lot of teams will be interested in. But I think this might be, if you're trying to think of in the Twins world of, okay, if we want to add salary, we have to trade away salary. Well, we don't want to trade away salary. We want to keep our marketable guys. And it's not like anybody's probably taking Kyle Farmer, or I don't know if anybody's taking Manuel Margot off your hands. It's probably going to have to be a guy like Max Kepler, or maybe there's some other options maybe out there, but it's going to be somebody who is valuable to the Twins that another team wants. No one's just going to take a bad player with a big salary. So, okay, what is another option there? We'll find a cheap player who's potentially available. There's not a ton of those out there because, number one, there's just not a lot of selling teams, which makes this difficult, but I actually love what's happened to the trade deadline with the expanded playoffs. There's not that many sellers. Teams don't go into long rebuilds right now. That doesn't seem as popular as it once was. So there's very few sellers out there. So that means there's a lot of buyers. So again, if the Nationals made this guy available, the thing that would probably drive up his price is the market. There would be a lot of teams interested in him. So that's maybe, I mean, it seems ridiculous to say this. Call him a pie in the sky idea. But maybe that's what he is. I'm talking about Robert Garcia, the guy, a left-handed reliever on the Nationals nobody's ever heard of. Calling him a pie in the sky idea, but maybe he is. So I pivoted from him and wanted to throw another name out there. This is more realistic, and maybe a guy I can actually envision the Twins going and getting, Justin Wilson. 36-year-old lefty for the Reds. He's been hurt so much, he's barely pitched in years. We'll take a look at his kind of career numbers in just a moment here. But he's throwing the ball well. He's healthy right now. He's throwing the ball well. Again, a guy who's got a lot of baseball under his belt. Been around a long time. I think he's pitched in like parts of 12 seasons. His ERA and his WHIP don't stand out, but he's not qualified because he's thrown less than 30 innings. So that's why these sliders are kind of shaded out, but you can see he's done some impressive stuff during his time with the Reds so far this year, sitting 95 as a lefty. That's pretty nice with a cutter and a slider mixed in there, throws a few splitters as well. But here's his career numbers. Been around forever, debuted in 2012, but yeah, hasn't thrown even 40 innings since 2018. So this guy, even though he's healthy in the moment, and I do think teams much like the Twins who have like an obvious need for a left-handed reliever, this is a guy that they're going to be thinking about too, because the pending free agent, I think he had a $1.5 million contract for this year. So you're only paying like 40% of that. Cheap, going to be a free agent, pitching well in the moment. I think he would be. I would trust him over Caleb Thielbar at this point. I know that unfortunately, I hate to say it, but that's not saying a ton. But you see a 10.3 K per nine and a 2 walk per nine. So a 5.17 strikeout to walk ratio right now. Some other things, not looking great, but is some of that pitching in a small ballpark? I don't know. I haven't dug that deep into this guy, but jumping back, Justin Wilson, if you really wanted to press me on, give me one name that's the most likely, a realistic possibility that the Twins could acquire without all these gymnastics of, moving a bunch of money around. Justin Wilson is maybe the guy I can come up with. And that's not to say that I think it's impossible that the Twins might end up with like a Yusei Kikuchi, who I talked about in another video. But things get kind of complicated. Things get hard to know, how handcuffed the front office is going to be, without having exact numbers or being on the inside. We're kind of left to speculate. Gets a little tricky there. Maybe they have a bigger target that they could get, but this is sort of the guy who boil everything down, knowing what we know, and kind of giving the vibe of how I feel the target is going to be. Justin Wilson was the guy that I came up with. So who knows what's going to happen? It's going to be crazy. There's been a lot more activity than I expected early on here, which has been fun, and some really interesting trades and trades between teams that were not that far apart in the standings in some instances. So I think kind of challenge trades. And I think we're going to see some more of those where it's not, we're trading a prospect for a major leaguer. And there have already been some trades where, major leaguers, even around the same age with around the same team control, being traded from one team to another. So again, I think it's really hard to analyze. It's really fun. I think this new playoff format has made this interesting. Also, there's not waiver trades anymore, so the deadline is the deadline to make trades. So there's not that. Those two things have really changed, and it's hard to know and analyze what the market's going to be. That's part of why I'm not offering up what it might take to get these guys today. But it's going to be exciting. I'm looking forward to what happens. I'm guessing the Twins are going to have a pretty quiet deadline, but I wouldn't completely bank on them, not making a big move. Potentially, they have a good farm system. They could trade a Luke Keyshaw, and really not feel like you completely damaged the system because they have so much infield, in young infield. They have so many guys, even their rotation. I think 4/5 of their rotation right now have at least 3 more years of team control. So the foundation is excellent. They should absolutely be motivated to build around that and potentially push harder. But it's hard to be completely honest. It's hard for me, as much as I want to hype up everybody and get everybody excited about that potential. To be honest, I think probably Justin Wilson is a more realistic outcome. But thanks for hanging out. I really appreciate it. Hopefully you enjoyed some trade talk. Let me know if there's any names on the market that are being whispered around that really have caught your eye, and we'll talk again soon.